Okay, today we're going to look at 9.4. So in 9.4, it is the trigonomic algebra or trigonomic ratios. You will use this more in Algebra 2 and trigonometry, but I want you to be familiar for what these are setups, how to look at it on a triangle, those type of things, because you are going to need this as part of your I-step functions. And like I said, you are going to be using it in your future math courses. So I'm not expecting you to have this memorized, but I would like you to be able to recognize what's going on with it. So let's put our triangle on here. This is our trigonomic triangle. So we have B, C, and A, where C is the right angle. So C is always known as having the hypotenuse across from it. I always want to put an H in there, and there's never an H. So hypotenuse. There we go. All right. So the length between C and A is known as the adjacent. To that, and this is the opposite. Now remember, we're talking about tan A. A means I'm focusing on angle A. So tan A is going to be the opposite over the adjacent. So, and those are the links, by the way, of the opposite and adjacent. So we're looking at this is BC over AC. The second thing we need to look at is, what if I'm asking you for the links for B? So let's say that I'm focusing on that, because this is dealing with acute angles. So you still have A, C, and B. But this time, instead of focusing on the part here, we're going to be looking at this one up here instead of A. So the hypotenuse, this will become my opposite now, and this over here will become my adjacent. Okay, so if that's the case, this is tan B. Tan B is going to be the opposite, which is now AC over the adjacent, which is BC. So in the in the exercises we're going to look at next, which is on the next page, it's 1 through 3. And on these, what we're going to do is we are going to take and find out both what those are. Now they're kind of playing with us a little bit, because what they're doing is they are going to switch the letters around on us, but we're going to be using the same ratio setups with our triangles. So let's look at number 1. So for number 1, let's draw this out. All right, so this is S, this is T, and this is R. We are looking for tan A and then tan B. So B is the focal point with this one, because there are 2 angles, and A is the focal point of S. Sorry about that. Okay, so if we know that, let's set them up. Tan A is going to be RT over ST. And tan B is going to be the reverse. It is going to be ST over RT. So they're literally flip-flops. So A and B are flip-flops of each other. That's what gives them the different lengths. So let's fill in what they gave us. So RS is 51, TS is 45, and RT is 24. So let's put these in here. So RT is 24 over 45, which reduces, when I pull a 3 out, as 8 over 15. Now, if we look at B, B is going to be 45 over 24, which still reduces, but this time into 15 over 8. So we have the fraction part of what it asked for. It asked now for the equivalent. So the equivalent in decimal form, let's go to our calculators. So if we do that, we are going to have 8 divided by 15, which is, and it says out to the 4 places, 0.5333. For the 15 over 8, you're going to have 1.875. So that one doesn't have to go out further because that's as far as it's going to go. Okay, so now that we've done that one, let's look at number 2. Now number 2 is just a tad different on this because we have square roots, which you're going to find doesn't make it more complicated. It just means you have a little more work to keep in mind of. Okay, so that triangle's not great, but we get the idea. That's 7, that's 5, even though it looks bigger, and this is 74. So there's L, there's K, and there's J. Well, the shorter length is going to be where the A is located, and then this is where my B would be located. So keep that in mind when you are setting this up. Now, let's do our tan A and tan B. So in this case, tan A is going to be the shorter length, which is going to be 5. I'm sorry, which is going to be 7 because I got to do the adjacent. So it's going to be 7 over the one that's adjacent to. So the adjacent one in this case is going to be 5. And let me check this. Hold one moment. Okay, so that I am correct on this, the way they have the J and the K, I wanted to make sure I didn't have it flipped around. So in this case, you're going to set them equal. So 7 divided by 5, we know is 1 point. Let me get my calculator back up here. 7 divided by 5 is 1.4. So that's all the further it can go. That's as far as it goes down, no 4 decimal places. And the other way, because we know tan B is the reciprocal of that. So 5 divided by 7 is 0.7143. Okay, so that one's example 2. So the last example that has to do with these is going to be example 3. So example 3, we're kind of turned on our side, but it wants you to keep the tan A and so forth the same. So it's going to be A, B, and C. So if this right here is A, then this right here is how we're going to set this up. So if this is my A, this is my C and B are flipped around in a sense, but we still know that we're going to keep this as my tan B when I come around to it. So basically all we're doing is the same thing. I'm going to have tan A. So tan A is going to be, let's see, I got to put my links, square root 2, 2, and square root 6. So I'm going to have 2 over square root 2. Now, in section 9.1, we talked about rationalizing denominators with radicals. So this is like rationalizing your denominator. So remember we said that we had to multiply by the square root on both top and bottom. So in square root 2 times square root 2 makes square root 4, which is the same as saying 2. So I actually have 2 square root 2 over 2, which reduces. These 2 square root 2's drop out, leaving square root 2. Well, the answer for that, when we put it in our calculator, is going to be 1.4142. So that's all part A. So part A had a little bit of rationalizing denominators, a little bit of extra things there. So let's look at tan B. So tan B is the reciprocal. So I'm going to have the square root on top and the 2 on bottom this time. Now, this literally you put into your calculator. So I would put in 1.4142 divided by 2, and you should get, at least this is what I got, 0.7071. Okay, so you do not need a calculator, do not need a calculator to do fractional amount, but if you do, you're still going to round it out and get the same answer. So what I'm going to tell you guys is go ahead and get the square root of 2 and then just divide that by 2, and that's what you're going to get for your answer. All right, folks, so that is the end of the first part of this. The second part's going to deal more with angles. So video 2 is going to be with the angles and not just the ratios.